Hello, good evening, good day, everybody, and welcome to Ask Abhijit, this special 60-minute episode. I apologize, I could not do an episode yesterday. The noise levels where I am were too high, so there was no point doing it. It would have been a headache for me as well as for you. So here we are today. This is a special episode to make up for that, and maybe we can do one more tomorrow if you would like that. So let us see who all is there on the live chat with all of us. I can see Vladimir Putin. Ayush Singh, Himanshu Rajpurohit, Bruce Wayne is here. Well, Bruce Wayne from Gotham City. Himanshu Rajpurohit, Rasputin, hello. Gaurish KB, AJ Raul, Patriotic, Aryavart, Kash, Suman Shekhar Sarangi, Shivam Shukla, Rasputin again. Anonymous, Teen Talks Dharma, Dak, Gaurish KB, Akash Patwardhan, Adwai Mayank, Vidhi Manyar, Geopolitical Dubey, Amisha Mishra, Ayush Singh, Rishab, Uchiha Whitey, Mahik Katha, Shiva Sai, Raghav Malhotra, Godliness, Ashok K, Geopolitical Dubey from Indore, Vinay Rai from London, Raghav Malhotra, Bharat, Mayank, Prem, Player Unknown, Vishnu Mohanan, Naveen Sai Vemuri, Patriotic, Polar Bear is here, Bharat again, Suraj S, Bhargav Goswami, Devik Shriyan, Himanshu, Dev from Kalinga. Well, hello. Sharad Baghel, and lots of other people. All right, all right. So nice to see you all. Anupam Singh Purohit, Anupam Pratap Singh, sorry, from LinkedIn. And Annie. Annie is there. Priyanshi Sood, Hardik Joshi, Kanishk Kaushik, and everybody else. All right, all right. Let's get going with the questions. Let's take as many questions as possible. I can see Saif Mahmood Ucho, hello, and everyone else. RPPL from Washington DC has joined us. Himanshu is from Chennai, and so on. All right, let's get going with the questions. What questions do we have? Godliness says Trump is frustrated with Ukraine, Russia, with India and China. Do you believe out of this frustration he will use US military might in the future to re-establish the American supremacy? And if yes, in which region? Well, the people he's frustrated with are people that are not that amenable to, being intimidated by military might. So if Trump is frustrated with Ukraine and Russia, well, Ukraine is his war. It's not Putin's war or Modi's war. It's an American war. They created this war, the Americans. So they've been blaming Putin for this all the time. It's Putin's war. Putin started this. No, you forced him into it. They forced Russia into this by crossing Russia's red lines. It's like, imagine if Russia goes and interferes in Mexico and starts doing a regime change operation in Mexico or in Canada. Will the Americans allow it? It will be a red line for the Americans. They did the same thing in Russia, in Ukraine, which was a Russian red line, and it directly impacts Russia's national security, and which is why the war has happened. It is an American war, and Ukraine is merely a proxy. So it's an American war. It's essentially US versus Russia by proxy. And if he's frustrated, Trump is frustrated with that, well, that's not anyone's problem. It is a trap that he laid himself by claiming that he would end the war on day one. Well, it's been months now. What happened to your promise to the American citizen that he would end the Ukraine war on day one? It's a failure. Trump has failed. He's immensely frustrated, and he's trying to blame people for that. His minion Navarro is saying this is Modi's war. Oh, really? Should India withdraw the troops from Donbass? Should we? Please let us know if we should withdraw our Indian troops from the Donbass region. Would you like us to do that? These people are delusional. They're lashing out at the world. They're blaming others for their own for problems they have created themselves. So yes, Trump is frustrated. He's frustrated about the Ukraine situation. He's frustrated with Russia because Russia hasn't crumbled. He's frustrated about India because India hasn't caved in to his bullying. And he's frustrated with China because China has become a powerful nation and a genuine technological power, which is almost neck to neck with the US. In his frustration, will the US use military might? It'll be a huge mistake to try and use military might anywhere. To use military might somewhere, you need a just cause for war, right? You can go and bully small nations like Venezuela and all. It won't work with the more powerful nations. The US supremacy is still there. I mean, they have immense power projection capabilities. They have a legion of vassals all across the world. The entire EU, NATO nations are their vassals. All the African nations are in the US's thrall. Japan, South Korea, many Southeast Asian nations, unfortunately, are under the US domination. So they already have supremacy. Australia is under the supremacy. New Zealand, Latin America, all of that. So it's not like they don't have supremacy, but they're frustrated because their power is kind of declining, and they can see other powers rising now. So I don't see the Americans using military might. They may use proxies. They may use Pakistan to create a war with India. They will first arm Pakistan. See, we saw what happened in Operation Sindoor. Pakistan got a tremendous hammering. No matter what the Western media is saying and the Pakistani media is saying, and some sections of the Indian media are saying, we know the Pakistanis got a hammering. So the Americans will have identified what are the Pakistani weaknesses, and they will try and fill those weaknesses with American weapons and whatnot. It may be happening as we speak right now. And when they feel the time is right, they may start a war with India through Pakistan to create a Ukraine-like situation for us. That's one thing they could do. For China, well, I don't see much that they can do unless they want South Korea or Japan to go to war with China, which won't happen, which is not possible. So with China, it's not possible. With Russia, they've already created the Ukraine situation. With India, they may create a Pakistan situation. So that is something we have to be cognizant of. In the future, in the coming days, weeks, months, the US may trigger an India-Pakistan war. They may ask the Pakistanis to go to war with India by maybe creating a Pahalgam 2.0 kind of situation, right? So yeah, that the Americans could do. But apart from that direct military intervention, I don't see that happening. Uchiha says, don't you think that a small Thucydides trap applies for the US visa versus ASEAN? Because if they get too powerful, they can use the leverage of our dependency with respect to China. No, Thucydides trap occurs between peer competitors. It doesn't happen with vassals. Unfortunately, ASEAN nations are kind of US allies or US vassals. Okay, in various ways, economic means, other means. There's no chance of a Thucydides trap happening between the overlord and his vassals, unless the vassals start becoming genuine powers in their own right, which is not happening anyway. Which is not happening. Yeah, how is ASEAN going to become too powerful? A little bit of economic might doesn't make any difference. What does powerful mean? It means genuine military power and power projection capabilities. And if it's economic might, it's the kind of economic might that can transform the world. So even India doesn't have that right now, but India could be there in the next 15, 20 years. And that's why the Americans are worried about India. ASEAN, no. Vidhi says, deep state low-key uniting Jambudvīpas, so goat FR. Yes. Yeah. Amisha says, what are your conclusions from the S.C.O Summit? It's kind of a reset in the India-China relationship. Mr. Putin will be pleased about that. And it's a signal to Mr. Trump, essentially, that your bullying is not going to work with certain nations. It's not going to work with India. It's not going to work with Russia or with China. And you can see that now Trump's antics, Trump's theatrics, and Trump's trade war against the world, it is creating a coalition of the nations that are being targeted. And India and China are willing to once again engage, perhaps constructively. We'll have to see about that. But you can definitely see a reset in the India-China relationship. Mr. Modi and Mr. Xi Jinping met face to face across the table in a proper formal meeting, and they also interacted with Mr. Putin and all that. And the visuals were very positive, very, very, very friendly, very warm visuals. So overall, you could say that it's a reset. It's maybe the beginning of something new, perhaps, possibly. I think it's still too early to say whether an RIC kind of thing would happen. Russia, India, China, that sort of coalition or alliance. I think it's too early for that to predict that. But you can definitely say a reset. And yeah, so overall, it's good signs for the free world. The free world. What's the free world? The free world is the world which is not vassalized by the US. So it's good signs for the free world. Feminist says importance of PSUs, public sector units, in India's sovereignty. Everything is important in India's sovereignty. All the sectors, all the units, whether they're public, whether they're private, they are all in some way or the other important for maintaining India's economic and overall sovereignty. PSUs, well, these are industries or businesses that are essentially run by the government, and historically they have been well, not performing so well. So I'm not sure about that, but overall everything is important in India's sovereignty. India's economy needs to be, well, it needs to be robust, and everything, well, everything contributes to that, including PSUs. Shankar Mahadevan says, was Trump's crypto business hit in Pakistan? Well, Trump hasn't really started his crypto business in Pakistan, right? Um, he had announced, well, see, he is not directly involved with the Trump empire companies that are investing in Pakistan. Directly means uh, he his son or sons or family members are running the show, but obviously it's his business empire, and they have recently invested in a big way in Pakistan's cryptocurrency sector. Was that hit? I have not seen any signs of that being hit, because the cryptocurrency sector hasn't even taken off in Pakistan. That's something the Americans will be investing in. That's what the Trump empire will be investing in the coming, well, coming time. Okay, Uchiha says, us means India. Us means India in what? Okay, us means India. All right. Atharva Pujari says, is RIC bigger victory for China than India? RIC hasn't happened, first of all. And if RIC happens, it will depend on what form of RIC happens. What's the shape of RIC? What's the contours of RIC? What's the agreements and understandings that underpin the RIC? That will decide whether it's a big victory for China or India or Russia, or it's good for everybody at the same time. RIC hasn't happened. What does RIC mean? It means it's an RIC essentially means Russia, India, China cooperating, collaborating together, perhaps an alliance or perhaps just a coalition. Um, so it hasn't happened yet. It's the S.C.O meeting was just essentially a reset. It's the three leaders coming together, and showing that they are willing to work together, especially India and China. That was important. So now we'll have to see how it is taken forward. That is what's going to matter. So how do India and China sit together and work things out? We have major differences, major issues, right? The border issue is a very major issue, and as long as that festers, the relationship cannot be on the right track. So what do we do about that? So RIC hasn't happened yet, and whenever RIC, if it does happen, when it happens, we will have to see what is the shape of RIC. Is it a treaty? Is it an RIC treaty in which the three nations officially create a treaty and sign it and decide and agree to work together in a specific set of ways? If that is the case, then we'll have to examine the nature of the treaty. What is the language of the treaty? What has been agreed upon? If there is no treaty, if it is just an informal thing, well, then that's not really RIC. See? So it's too early to say that RIC has even happened. And then if RIC happens, then we'll have to see whether it's a victory for one or the other or all three. We'll have to see about that. It's too early. It's too early to talk about RIC. Geopolitical Dubai says, how strong is the Russian presence in Central Asia? Russia considers Central Asia to be its strategic backyard. Like India has the slogan, right? We consider the Indian Ocean region to be our strategic backyard. Well, Russia has, it's more than a slogan for Russia. They see the Central Asian region used to be part of the USSR. So everybody there essentially speaks Russian. Now, after the USSR broke up, there have been new generations that have been born, which have not been that Russianized as such, but the Russian influence is still very strong. And Russia has all kinds of agreements with various nations. Some are military cooperation agreements, some are bilateral agreements of economic, some are uh, uh, defense agreements, and so on. So Russia engages in bilateral and multilateral military exercises and other things with all these nations. So Russia has a significant presence in the region. Russia still acts as a guarantor of power, a guarantor of security for these nations, for many of these nations. Some of the nations have been dilly-dallying with the US. Some of them have been doing that. For example, if you look at Kyrgyzstan, okay, I'm just giving one example. Kyrgyzstan, there is an American university there in Bishkek. Bishkek is the capital of Kyrgyzstan, and there is the AUCA there, American University of Central Asia. So the Americans have infiltrated places like Kyrgyzstan. They have even created color revolutions in some of these countries. But still, overall, Russia has a pretty strong, very robust, and pretty strong presence in various Central Asian nations. And there are certain red lines these Central Asian nations essentially cannot cross when it comes to, not displeasing Russia. Kanishka says, any update on Tibet as India and China are cooperating a bit? There is no update on Tibet. What do you expect? What can we expect? Do you think that Tibet will now suddenly become jointly governed by India and China? Is that what anyone is expecting? There's no update on Tibet. Even if India and China cooperate more than a bit, there's going to be no update on Tibet. Tibet is a non-negotiable thing for China. China is not giving up Tibet. Okay? So, yeah, there is no update on Tibet. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. None. You don't even dream of it. Project Smiling Buddha says, many Indian right-wing people turned pro-US, ditched India. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I kind of get what you're saying. See, when Trump came to power, there's so many Indians who were like celebrating. So I hear that somebody even made a temple to Trump and put a murti of Trump there, and they're worshipping the guy, that sort of thing. And lots of Indians were saying that these are the glory days of India, US, that sort of thing. Yeah. And you can see that this has been the worst ever American presidency for India. No American president, no American regime has ever used this much economic coercion against India. Not even the Nixon Kissinger regime tried to coerce India in the way that the Trump regime has done. This is the worst phase of India-US relations ever since 1947, right? So what happened to all those people? I think they're staying quiet. Have they ditched India? I have no idea who has ditched India. If you're Indian, how do you ditch India? Yeah, if you're Indian, you can ditch India by migrating to the US and becoming a citizen. That's what you can do. But yeah, overall, those who were celebrating, well, they're quiet now, I suppose. And Project Smiling Buddha says, why are Indian businesses not selling in Russia as much? We just came back last week from Russia and saw a lot of tea spices from Pakistan and Sri Lanka, but not India. Well, I don't know. I mean, if Pakistan and Sri Lanka are selling tea and spices in Russia, why isn't India doing a thing? I think India is really, there's a lot India needs to do about this. I mean, India seems to be very lax in this matter. Little countries are getting ahead of India in certain ways. India should be monopolizing tea, spices, all of that in Russia. There should be no place for Pakistan or Sri Lanka. I don't know why it's like this. We are a way bigger manufacturer of tea and spices and whatnot, everything else, compared to Pakistan or Sri Lanka. So I think the Indian government, the government of India needs to look into this very carefully. What on earth is happening? Are we dozing at the wheel? Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer to this. Why are not Indian businesses not selling so much in Russia? And when it comes to manufacturing, when is the Indian manufacturing sector taking off? All of this needs to be looked into now. Now is a very critical time for India. India is under immense pressure from the US. The Indian economy is going to be hit by the Trump tariffs. Okay, there's going to be a hit of 0.6 to 0.8%. That's what is being projected by various experts over the next year at least, as long as the not sanctions, the tariffs continue. So it is high time for India to throw away its lethargy, its laziness, and take these things very seriously. So yeah, I would say that it's good that you're pointing this out, and this is something that needs to be looked into and worked upon on a urgent priority basis. Dins says, would you personally accept Aksai Chin as part of China if China forfeits their claim to Arunachal? Do you think both countries can agree on this? You see, that's the problem. I can personally say I can agree to this or that. But imagine you're asking this to the Prime Minister of India. The moment the Prime Minister of India, let's say hypothetically, fictitiously agrees to some sort of thing like this, what's going to happen? The opposition is going to go to the top of every rooftop and every mountain and start tom-tomming. See, he sold our country to China. That's what they will claim. It is they who sold the country to China by allowing the Chinese to take Aksai Chin in the first place. But now if we on paper recognize it and agree to a swap, then the opposition will try and go for blood. This is the problem. What is the deeper problem? The fact that this country is a democracy. Yeah, where random people can decide the fate of the government based on emotive issues, emotional things. Would I personally accept Aksai Chin as part of China if China forfeits their claim to Arunachal? Me personally, I think I may accept that as a temporary measure. Eventually, I want everything back. But right now, I'll say sure. Okay. Right now, let's agree to this. Later, we'll see. Baad mein dekha jayega. Maybe I would do that. Because right now, it's anyway in their hands, right? So, and Arunachal is in our hands. So, I think the cleanest way to settle the boundary issue, the India-Tibet boundary issue, is to freeze the boundary wherever it is and declare it the international border. I think that's the cleanest way to do it. That would end all the problems. But I can say it sitting here because I don't need anyone's votes. Okay. But if you're the Prime Minister of India, you need votes. Otherwise, next election, you're out. So that's the problem in India. That's the problem. Rahul Ji says, will China still trade weapons with Pakistan? That remains to be seen. Right? They haven't told us. We still have no agreement with China. It's just been a nice reset, kind of, to some extent, that the two leaders can now sit face to face and talk to each other and walk around the hall with Mr. Putin smiling. That is a major change that's happened. Earlier, the two leaders did not even look at each other. They did not even meet each other for several years. So that is the extent of the reset. It doesn't mean that now everything has changed and China will no longer sell weapons to Pakistan. They may still do it. That's the thing. So we still have to see what the situation is. What will most likely happen now is that the diplomats of the two countries, leaders of the two countries at various levels will sit together and try and understand what can be done going forward. What do you seek from us? What do I seek from you? Let's understand each other's perspective. What is it that you want from me? And what is it that you don't like that I'm doing? How would you like? What kind of change do you want? And I can tell you what kind of change I want. So if I'm India, I'll tell the Chinese, look, you need to stop dealing with Pakistan. Okay? You need to stop selling weapons to Pakistan. What if that's what we want, what would you like from us in return? So they'll say something about the Dalai Lama, they'll say something about something else. So you have to go get down, sit together and talk everything through, understand very well what the other guy wants. They have to understand very well what we want, and then there has to be some kind of understanding and some kind of agreement. And a good agreement is something in which both have to make some compromise. So right now it's too early to say. I think China will still be inclined to sell Pakistan some weapons. I think so. Anything UV says, how and when India can have labs like Bell Labs or DeepMind IMB Research? Why do we lack such institutions from the government and private players? It's because most of the money in India, the government money, goes into freebies, funding freebies. All these various schemes, freebie schemes, which keep the votes coming. Because you have to understand this. India is a democracy, and in India, the most people are uneducated. Just having passed a certain standard, 10 standard, 12 standard, maybe college, doesn't mean that you have an understanding of the world. You're not taught how to think critically. You're not taught what it means to be genuinely self-sufficient, right? So most people still want all these freebies despite having some sort of education. And if the government ends the freebie schemes, then they will stop. The people will not vote for them. Whoever ends all these free things that are being given, they will be voted out of power immediately. So all of the money of the country, a lot of it is being spent on these largely behena yojanas and God knows what yojanas. I don't know what it does. Yeah, but whatever. So when you have so much money being spent like that, how will you have all these things? Bell Labs, DeepMind, whatever. And when it comes to the private players, well, the private players only want to make some money. Money. They are happy with a few crores, maybe a few hundred crores more, maybe not a few thousand crores. They don't want to think about the trillions of dollars that you can earn by really investing in genuine, hardcore, cutting edge, bleeding edge research for many years and being patient. right? They want the money now, and it's easy to make money now by playing the game of labor arbitrage or whatever. So that's why that's the issue in India. It's a mindset issue. There are young people who are coming up now with startups and all, who are really investing in a small way in genuine research, and those hopefully in coming years will become really big going forward. So that's what one hopes. Bhaskar Kayathwal says demographic re-engineering in Europe by Gehra Raj, deep state, and so on. What's the reason for that? Is it only because Christianity has reduced so much that they need new ways of control, or is it something more? Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's multiple factors behind this. See, there is no question about the fact that there is demographic re-engineering happening in Europe as we speak. Every country, and whether you look at France, well, the French are responsible for what happened in France themselves by first colonizing North Africa and then having so much immigration coming from North Africa that now France is like a multi-ethnic country. And so the French are responsible for their own plight. When it comes to nations like the Nordic nations, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, there's a lot of immigration from specific countries that's happened in the past 10, 15 years. So much that the whole demography has changed. You're seeing that in Ireland now. It started just a few years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, and now already you can see a major, major change. I mean, Dublin, one hears the center of Dublin looks very different now. England, they are responsible for their own plight. But overall, if you look at it, there is re-engineering of the demography happening. Certain kinds of people are being pushed in large numbers. So the question is why? Who is doing it and why? Look, it is all being done by the EU. The EU has refugee quotas or immigrant quotas for every country. And every country has to allow every year a certain number of immigrants in. And who decides the kind of immigrants? I think the EU decides what countries the immigrants can come from. It's usually military aged males, young males, and very few women or children. So that's what they're doing. They're bringing in these people. It's essentially an invasion that is being engineered by the EU. Now, the EU is controlled from Washington, D.C. The EU is a bunch of bureaucrats that nobody elected, and they're all controlled from the US. So it's all being done in some way or the other through the US, by the US. So you could say the deep state is behind it. What's the reasons? Is it because Christianity has reduced? Uh, it's true that of late, the past several decades, Christianity has really gone down. I mean, the number of practicing Christians has reduced drastically. In the 1980s, when the Pope would visit Ireland, there would be millions of people on the street out there to catch a glimpse of the Pope. But now, if the Pope visits there, the Pope will not even bother to go on that in that car in public, because no one's going to turn up to see the Pope. So the number of practicing Christians has reduced drastically because of various factors. Uh, and Christianity, historically in the West, has been a tool of control. The entire populace of Europe historically was controlled through Christianity. Now that Christianity has been, well, essentially overthrown in a variety of ways. So how do you control the people, right? So you can bring in a new religion, which also is the religion of control, and maybe you can do it that way. So re-engineer the religious demographics of the country, re-engineer the ethnic demographics of the country, and then control everyone through this new religion. That's one hypothesis that one could put forward, right? Uh, and another thing, I mean, when it comes to nations like Germany, so Germany was, well, it aspired to be great. They've always had this ideal of the white race. Uh, Sometime in the 19th century, they stole the word Arya from India, and they decided that the word Arya or Aryan means white people. That's what they decided unilaterally by stealing our ethnic self-designation. So Germany aspired to be great, and their ideal of greatness was the Aryan race, the white race, so-called white race. It's completely fake, but whatever. So Germany is that sort of nation that the Americans are afraid of. The Americans worry about Germany, that Germany could once again rise someday if the right leader comes up. And once again, you could have the whole rigmarole that happened in the 1930s and 40s. So how do you ensure it doesn't happen? See, whenever the Americans think of Germany, at some level in their mind, in their psyche, they can still see those marching boots, the Third Reich marching boots. They don't want to see that again. So how do you ensure it never happens again. End the Aryan race. Have them mix with all kinds of immigrants from everywhere else. So there's no question of the superior race or anything. The German identity itself disappears, right? So yeah, so that's one way of ensuring that Germany never rises again, because it won't be Germany eventually. It will no longer remain Germany if so many people from other countries come in. A lot of Turks. There's been a bunch of Turks in Germany for decades, since the end of the Second World War, essentially. I don't know what percentage of Germany is of Turkish ethnicity, maybe close to 10%. And then you bring in other people from specific countries, and you change the demography even more, and you have the government promote these multicultural ideas and all that and whatever. So that way you can essentially destroy what it means to be German, the German identity itself. You can simply erase it over a few generations. So I think that's what's going on. It's to ensure that Europe never rises again. And if you want to control the people of Europe, you turn them into non-Europeans over time, and then you use the new religion that's now uh, been implanted there to control the people. It's all about control. The West has always been about control, centralized control. So that's what's going on again. It's a phase of European history which will end with Europe no longer being Europe. Well, Kanishka Kaushik says, I don't know where's my Brahminical profit from Russian oil. I know. Pete Navarro has gone crazy. He's an absolute imbecile. Trump's minion. Pete Navarro. He went on TV, American TV, and said that the Brahmins in India are profiting from oil, from Russian oil. What? Who is this utter moron? He went on TV and claimed that Brahmins in India are profiting from Russian oil. This is desperation. This is utter lunacy, idiocy. This is, I mean, I don't know what polite word I can dredge out of my mind to describe this individual, Pete Navarro. And whatever he is saying is Trump's words. It's his mouth and his lips that are fluttering, but it's Trump's words that are coming out. Brahminical profit. Yeah? So in India, the Brahmins are profiting from Russian oil. Ukraine is a nation that's buying Indian diesel that is refined from Russian oil. So is Ukraine funding Putin's war on Ukraine? Is that the case? These people in the US, what is wrong with them? The thing about Trump is that he has hired a bunch of yes men. These yes men, they wake up in the morning, go to the White House, lie down at his feet, and kiss his shoes. That's what they do. They are yes men. They will do whatever Trump says. They are not picked for their intellect or for their qualities or their capabilities. They are picked for being yes men. Just do what I say, and that's it. And JD Vance finds himself in a very tough position right now. So that's the kind of nonsense that's coming out of the US right now. That Brahmins in India are making profits from Russian oil. Absolute bunch of idiots. Naman Singh says, let's think hypothetically. How can India move towards stability, dictatorship, OPR? What's OPR? One party rule. And how can we ensure the growth of India, avoiding the cursed opposition? I don't know. I have no idea how that happens. See, right now, everything. Yeah, how do you move towards a one party system? For that to happen, one party will have to make all other parties irrelevant in some way, which means that the public no longer votes for the other parties. And then you have de facto one party rule, because then the opposition becomes essentially non-existent. But in the Indian system currently, you can only have this happen through the process of democracy. There's no other way it happens. India is not the kind of country where you could have a military coup. It's not that kind of country. It just won't happen. It just won't work even if it's attempted. Yeah. It doesn't work. If a military coup happens, then they can only control the building that they are controlling. That's how it goes in India. It doesn't work. Regime change, well, yeah, that. So the thing is, how can India move towards that? In the current shape of things, the way it is, the only way to achieve that is through the democratic process. It's by one party becoming so powerful and so popular in the public eye that all other parties no longer get any meaningful votes, and you have a de facto one party rule, and that's how you can ensure the growth of India and avoid this headache of look, in a democracy, an opposition actually should be valuable. If the government is not doing some things right, then they should point it out and point it out to the people and force the government to do the right things. But sometimes you have situations in some countries, okay, hypothetically, where the opposition is actually anti-national and they parrot the propaganda of outside forces. Hypothetically, in some countries it may happen like that. So that's a problem, right? If that's the case for such countries, it's a problem. So in India, it can only move towards stability or one party rule through the democratic process. There's no other way it can happen the way things currently are, unfortunately. Harsh has no question, but thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Naman Singh says, I have observed that NRIs are pro Hinduism and not pro India. I know many of these NRIs who go on X or Twitter or whatever, and they tweet lots of pro Hindu things. So 9 tweets will be pro Hindu, and one tweet will be about India should do this, and make Trump happy. I've seen many NRIs like this. Trojan horses. If you go to my Twitter feed, and you will see some images of Trojan horses, and then you will see who those NRIs are. I don't know. I'm sure there are many NRIs who are also pro India, but there are also a lot of Trojan horses there. So that's how it is. Okay. Prashant says, what are rare earth minerals? How can India catch up? Rare earth minerals are rare minerals. They are rare earth metals. Okay. Let's quickly go. I don't remember the exact name. Well, lithium, neodymium. Okay. Rare earths names. Which are the elements? Scandium, yttrium, the 15 lanthanides. See all these neodymium, promethium, samarium, europium, gadolinium, terbium, dysprosium, holmium, erbium, thulium, ytterbium, lutetium. So these are the rare earth elements, and these are used in various technologies. Okay, these are used in very high tech. These metals they have very high tech applications. So when it comes to cell phones, there are some very very minute components of cell phones which need rare earth metals or minerals, and without these rare earths, you won't have these phones functioning. The same goes for microprocessors and essentially all high tech equipment. So that's why you need these rare earths, and China controls 95% of the rare earth supply of the rare earths globally. So how can India catch up? Well, India also is a gigantic landmass, and we also have uh, significant reserves of rare earths. We definitely have enough rare earths to become completely self-sufficient in rare earths. But why haven't we caught up yet? It's because nobody has set up the mining and extraction industries in India. That takes time. That's pretty expensive. So that's why we have been simply happy to not do anything here and keep importing from China. And then when China decides that we will no longer sell it to you, what happens? Haha, that's what happens. So it is high time, once again, for the government or whoever it is to look into this very seriously and set up the rare earths um, extraction and purification industries in India. That's what needs to happen. Yeah, it can happen in a few years, 5-10 years, it can happen. Galluer says, for products that are made in India, if we label them as such, and this be made mandatory either as government policy or to the Supreme Court suo motu, can the WTO oppose? Can WTO oppose? Look at what's happening in the world right now. Trump's tariffs, absolutely unilateral tariffs, which is completely in violation of everything the WTO stands for. So, is the WTO even relevant today? Have they said a word against Trump? So now that they are completely quiet and silent and inactive when Trump is unleashing a trade war on the world, they better stay quiet when a country like India does something that is beneficial to our national interest. So I think I don't know about Supreme Court and all that, but I'm sure the government policy can be such that if products are made in India, then they should be labeled as such. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's an internal matter of India. We decide our own policy, and the WTO can stay the hell away. So I think there should be no issue. And even if the WTO tries to complain, we can tell them, where were you when Trump was doing all this? He's still doing all of this. What have you said about this? So if you want to speak about that, shut the hell up about this. That's what we can say. So I think this can be done. And it's good. It will be good if it's done. So we know that which products are actually made in India, and maybe patriotic people can support those. Yeah. Naman Singh says, why is the US looking like a clown these days? No serious. Well, you see, the way a nation looks, a nation's image depends on what? Well, to a large extent, a nation's image depends on the image of their leader. Yeah. If the leader is a person with majesty, for example, or a person with gravitas, then the country looks like a serious country. But if your leader is a joker, well, then your country looks like a clown. So, you see, if your leader is not serious, your country doesn't look serious. You see, that's how it goes. That also applies to sports teams. You will see this phenomenon in sports. For example, cricket. The entire team eventually takes up the personality of the captain. If your captain is a very quiet, introverted person, the whole team becomes like that. If your captain is a brash, arrogant, and aggressive person, then the whole team starts behaving like that. You will see that. When Ganguly was the captain, the whole team behaved like Ganguly. When Dhoni was the captain, the whole team behaved like Dhoni. And who's the captain now? When Kohli was captain, the whole team behaved like that. And who's the captain now? It's Gill. So yeah. So you will see the whole team taking up the persona of Gill as well. So that's how it goes. The leader makes a huge difference. If the leader is a joker, the country looks like a clown. Komal Bora says, why do we suffer, the common people? Well, it depends on where you are. If you are in a super rich country, you won't suffer. Or maybe you will suffer in different ways. Look, I'll tell you what. This world is a world of Moh Maya. Lord Buddha said that the world, what is the one truth in the world? It is suffering. Well, that's one way of looking at the world. You can also have a great amount of fun in the world and do very meaningful things. But at the end of the day, there is some suffering in life. Okay? Everybody loses something or the other over time. As you grow older, you will find that lots of things that you had in the past as a kid, as a youngster, those are no longer there. And then you feel a sense of loss. And that's what happens, suffering. And that happens to common people. It happens to uncommon people as well. Apart from that, if you're talking about the suffering that's only reserved for common people, well, that happens when you're in a third world country. If you're in a first world country, the common people don't suffer so much. So, yeah. Okay, Hayes says, when can India reclaim POK militarily? Yeah, let's not. At least once in a session, I get the question of POK. I don't know, sir. I don't know. When can India reclaim POK? I was hoping that Operation Sindoor will end with POK back with India, but Trump came in the way. So I suppose whenever India and Pakistan go to war next, which will happen sooner or later, I suppose we can end this once and for all. Yeah, because no victory is complete without an exchange of territory. We hammered Pakistan hard in Operation Sindoor, the 3-day war, but we did not take any territory. If we had taken even half a kilometer of territory, okay, then the world's media would have been completely silent. So I think whenever this war happens next, which is bound to happen now that Trump is in the hot seat behind Pakistan, whenever that happens, I suppose there will be some exchange of territory. Rahul says Bharat is buying more and more crude oil from Russia. Are we heading towards big scale war near the future? Well, I hope not. But I think a war with Pakistan could happen sooner or later. Because the Americans want that to happen. The Americans are very upset about India not becoming an American vassal. And they want to contain India. They have done so much in the past. They've laid the groundwork for containing India. They did a regime change operation in West Pakistan in 2022, ouster of Imran Khan. And Sharif is now the so-called leader. And they did a regime change operation a few months ago in East Pakistan. They got rid of Sheikh Hasina and brought in a military government. And they also started Operation Project K, Cookie Land for Christ. The mayhem in Manipur, that is all done by them. And they also have been playing the game of subnational diplomacy and dilly-dallying with various political parties at various levels, all of that. So the Americans want to contain India. And one of the steps in the containment policy will, and if these steps don't work and India still does well, then they will induce Pakistan to go to war with India. So I think that could be happening. That could be coming in, I don't know, in the coming days, weeks, months, whenever it happens, it could happen. Uh, Beyond that, I don't see any big scale war. A war with Pakistan probably will happen sometime, but it may not be a big scale war because that would be hopefully a decisive war which ends the headache for us, the headache on the western border once and for all. Rushil says, could you share your insight on the recent student worker protests in Indonesia? With articles suggesting a revolution may be in progress? Well, I haven't really kept a close watch on this. But whenever these spontaneous student protests happen, and the students are typically from very affluent universities and very rich backgrounds, it's generally, you would have seen that sort of thing happen in Thailand also in recent years. So it's usually a sign to the government that is running the country that, hey, you're getting out of line. Get back in line and do what you're told. And that message comes from Washington generally. It's to be understood. It is an implicit message to the government that when these students start protesting out of nowhere, well organized students and all that, there's always somebody behind that, a very powerful entity behind that. So it essentially is an indication, it's a signal to the government of the country that you better get back in line. You're doing something that we don't like. Get back in line and stop annoying us. Yeah, I don't know if a revolution could be in process. If the government doesn't get the hint, then a revolution could happen. Yeah. Like what happened in Bangladesh. It was not a student revolution, it was a coup. Eventually, at the end of the day, the military comes in. That's how it goes. So, yeah. Project Smiling Buddha says, why are Indians so afraid of loss in wars like planes or men? Russia throws everything into the war. We can't be powerful if you're so calculative. How to change this? It's because Indians have this mindset. If one aircraft is lost, oh my God, we lost an aircraft. If a few soldiers said, oh my God, boo hoo 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 hoo, war is like that. You can't be a great country if you don't have the appetite to tolerate some of this. How many Americans died in the Second World War? How many Americans died in the Korean War? How many Americans died in the Vietnam War? Did they go raising a hue and cry about this? Did they go crying boo hoo hoo everywhere all over the place? And their population is much smaller than ours. So I don't know what it is. It's the fault of the education system, the media, the entertainment industry, all of that. In war, you will have losses, even if you win. When the Americans destroyed Iraq, how many soldiers did they lose? How many aircraft did they lose? They lost lots, but they won and nobody was complaining. But in India, we are a nation of complainers. The Russians have won so many wars, but at what cost? But have they cried? Of course, they honor their soldiers after everything is over. They honor the soldiers who made the sacrifices. But when a war is going on, they are not afraid to throw soldiers in the fray and to throw equipment into the fray. That's what you have to do in a war. Without that, you win nothing. So I don't know how to change this. To change things in India, if you want to change the mindset of Indians, you have to go back to the very basics and change the whole education system. Without changing the education system and educating people about the very basics at the earliest age, nothing will change. Once somebody is 20, 25, what will you change about them? You can lecture them for 3 hours or 3 days, nothing will change in their minds. Right. Satellite says, which form of government has been most reliable and stable? The imperial system. Empires, emperors. That's what been most reliable and stable historically over the past few thousand years. Dins says, I think India needs to bring a scheme to bring back all wealthy NRIs back to innovate and build industries. How can this be done with India's low average wages? It can be done, first of all, by ending or sharply curtailing corruption in India. Secondly, by making India a completely fully meritocratic country and society. And thirdly, by giving the right inducements to people for which will make them come back. How did China get so many people back from the US? How did China do that? By giving them world-class salaries. The government would guarantee that you will get the kind of salary you will get nowhere else. You come back to China. We will treat you like royalty. You gotta work hard. You've got to You've got to produce the goods. As long as you do that, we will treat you like royalty. That's what needs to happen. Then all the high quality Indians will return to India, because India will be a different kind of place then, right? It will no longer be a third rate, mediocre country. Okay. Milan says in Australia there's this anti immigration protest going on, and that turned into an anti India protest with pamphlets circulating against Indians. Yes, that is the deal in the Western world right now. They are going after India. Indians are the best immigrants anywhere in the world, the model immigrants. Indians work hard. They earn more than the locals, and they give more back to society than the locals do. Indians never do violence. Indians don't indulge in crimes. Indians don't do to girls what the Pakistanis do. We do none of that, right? And yet the hatred is being unleashed on Indians. That's what you're going to see more and more. It's not because first of all, it's a racist thing. The whites have always been racist. I'm not saying all white people are racist, but the Europeans have historically been a racist society. In the past 500 years, they've developed the sense of superiority. So if you are an Indian in a Western nation, Australia is a Western nation, even though it's in Oceania, it's still a Western nation. You're gonna be treated well. According to law, you are all equal citizens, but kind of you're gonna be treated like a second class citizen in some ways. Uh, in some ways it will happen. It will be very subtle. You will not realize it until you're there for a long time, but you will see there's some difference. And sometimes it will come out very openly, like this, in times such as these, when the US is going after India. The US is very upset about India. Then you will see this sort of hatred being unleashed against Indians. So it's unfortunate. So I would recommend to everybody, all Indians, Indian origin people in Australia or in the Western world, to be a little alert, right? Okay, we're gonna do 7 more minutes. This is gonna be a 60-minute session. Unfortunately, uh, it's a special session. If you want, I can do another 60-minute session tomorrow as well. So that's not an issue. But I'm gonna have to end this at 5:45 p.m. IST. Another 7 minutes. Let's take one more, a few more. Pratap says, "Do RIC countries really shatter the West's dominance? They can if they actually genuinely work together. Russia, India, China. If they set differences aside, see, India and Russia have no differences. China and Russia have some differences. India and China have huge differences. If we can find a way to set the differences aside and genuinely work together in mutually beneficial ways, then we will, in a few years, end the West dominance. That is guaranteed. If the forces of India, China, Russia combine and work together, the West is finished in a few years. It will happen. But the question is, how do India and China set the differences aside? That's the big problem right now. Prashant says, wish our PM could sign EOs instead of the democratic way, executive orders. Well, that would be great, right? But then if you can just govern through executive orders, well, then you're essentially an emperor, aren't you? Even if it's for 5 years, yeah, it would be great. Then things would get done so much faster without all the committees and all the consensus and all the nonsense and all the voting and all the consultation with the federal structure and all that. My goodness, how slow things are in India. If the PM could just sign EOs, executive orders, and get things done, ye hona chahiye, ye hona chahiye, done, 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 done. Imagine how fast India will change. Yeah, one wishes. Kumar Kanishk says, as the US is picking a fight with everyone on the basis of its dollar being the reserve currency until it is, do you see the US sliding back to post World War II position if things continue like this decade? Well, if the dollar loses its supremacy in the world, if it slides back and is no longer kind of the reserve currency, then the US will slide back significantly. Sliding back to pre-World War II or post-World War II? Post-World War II position. The US's position post-World War II was super dominant. It was super dominant. The dollar was the reserve currency in the world. It was not under question the way it is today. So the US is fighting to preserve its supremacy and to preserve the status of the dollar as the reserve currency. That is what the fight is about. How are things going this decade? I think more and more countries are looking for alternatives beyond the US dollar. Even India is. If that continues, then and if the US is not able to stop that, then it's going to be bad times for the US, because their whole uh, one of the aspects of the dominance is the US dollar's might, which won't exist anymore. Galluer says, will the Quisling, will the word Zelensky enter the US dictionary as a synonym to traitor? So the synonym to traitor since the Second World War has been Quisling. Quisling was the leader of which country? Sweden, Denmark, one of these countries, right? And I believe he was executed for treason, for collaborating with the Nazis. Let us fact check that. Was he executed? Quisling. Quisling. Vikdun Quisling, Norway, who led a collaborationist government in German-occupied Norway. And I believe he was eventually, if I'm not mistaken, he was eventually executed. He was executed. Yes, trial and execution. All right. So Quisling was executed. But you see, this word Quisling entered the English dictionary as a synonym to traitor because he was regarded as a traitor by the English and by the West. But Zelensky is a collaborator with them, right? So they won't use the word Zelensky as a synonym for traitor. They won't do it. Maybe others will. So it may enter maybe the Russian dictionary as synonym to traitor, maybe the Chinese dictionary as synonym to traitor, but not the English dictionary because he's collaborating with the English-speaking world. Okay, I will take 2-3 more questions and then we're done. Mahidar says, there have been a lot of attacks on Indian immigrants and students in Western countries. We have been seeing a lot of attacks in Ireland, Canada, and the US. What can we do to stop this? There is nothing we can do to stop it. What can we do to stop it? Nothing. All I can say to Indian immigrants who are living there is be extra careful, be extra vigilant. Things are no longer the same. Okay? When you are in a place where, well, a strange place, be aware, be awake, look around, look who's around you, all of that you have to see. There's nothing we can do. At the best, what we can do is we can have Prime Minister Modi protest and urge the leaders of these countries, uh, the leader of the US, the leader of Canada, leader of Ireland, and leader of Australia, to ensure that Indian origin people, their safety is taken care of. That's the best Mr. Modi can do. That's the highest we can do. Beyond that, there's nothing we can do. So I would say that, look, if you are an immigrant in these countries, be careful. Be careful, be very careful. Shubham says, have you read the book The Eye of Shiva? No, by Amaury De Riencourt. It talks about how Indians will be the most likely to genetically edit themselves. Whoa, really? I'll have to check it out. I haven't read it, but I will make sure to check it out. The Eye of Shiva by Amaury De Riencourt. Okay, I'll check it out. Thank you for the recommendation. Interesting. Priyavrat Bharadwaj says, is living in the US dangerous for Indians? Look, the US is a nation of laws. It's a very legalistic nation. And overall, law and order has kind of deteriorated in the US. And it's possible that Indians could be singled out by racist people for violence, perhaps. It's possible. I think the likelihood is slightly higher now. Doesn't mean it's dangerous for Indians. Look, if you are a rich person, living in the US is not dangerous as long as you take all the precautions. But if you are not a rich person and you're living in a working class neighborhood, the likelihood is higher that you may be in a slightly more danger. Overall, it's still safe for Indians. And if you're attacked, I'm sure you can go to take recourse in the law of the land and so on. My point is just be careful. I think there is a higher likelihood right now that people will go after Indians. Overall, it's not been dangerous. Historically, it's not been dangerous. It's been a great place. But these days, things are different. Okay, 2 more questions and we're done. MK says, why post-nationalistic revolutions and freedom struggle regimes didn't bring violence at the scale of post-communist revolution regimes? See, post-nationalistic revolutions, freedom struggle regimes were generally nationalistic, and they did not believe in the dictatorship of the proletariat. And when you believe in the dictatorship of the proletariat, which Marxists do, then it is your duty to go after the bourgeoisie and the riffraff. What are they called? There's a term that I forget right now. Okay, it's a Marxist term. I haven't thought of it for a while. So the bourgeoisie are the people who need to be wiped out because they are very naughty and very evil, and they amassed all the wealth. They became wealthy. How dare you become wealthy? So when a Marxist revolution succeeds, if ever does, then once it succeeds, they go after the kulaks and the bourgeoisie and whoever else. So that violence continues. In a post-nationalistic revolution or whatever, things settle down after the revolution succeeds. It's a totally different paradigm. Shibam says, motorist unhappy with ethanol, how will government fix it? I have no idea. I have no idea. This is not a geopolitical issue. I have no idea. Sorry. Yeah, it's a domestic issue. I'm sure it's a problem in some ways. I'm not aware of the details, but yeah, I don't have an answer to this question. All right. Okay, folks, we have crossed the 1 hour mark. I'm gonna have to end it over here. Thank you so much for the questions. Would you like me to do another live stream like this tomorrow? 1 hour? If you would like it, then I'll be happy to do it. Otherwise, we can do it as per our regular programming on the weekends. Do let me know in the comments or wherever. I can see Bruce Wayne saying yes. Omni Movement is saying yes. Amisha saying yes. Animals for Laugh is saying yes. Siddharth, Amisha, Vladimir Putin, Priyavat, Sadar Chandra. Okay, everybody is saying yes. I'm going to have to do it. Geopolitical Dubai also. Ayush also. Pritham. All right. All right. I hear you all. We shall do another 1 hour live stream tomorrow. All right. So I'm going to take your leave now. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in the next live stream. Take care. Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.